Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Nerdly Adventures. My name is Elijah, and this is the aforementioned everything I read in the month of June. I know it's a couple days late. I did not read nearly as much as I would have liked. This is the stack, so not a whole lot, but I'm just gonna kind of go through and talk about some of the series and what I liked, what I didn't like, and that sort of thing. So let's get right on into it. These are going to be in no particular order of what order I read them in. Starting off, this is actually one of the more recent ones I read. This is To Lose a Guy Gardner in 10 Days. This was the Valentine's Day special for, I believe, this year. This is, I have a variant cover, but it's just like a 10, or not 10, like 5 or 6 different little short stories. They had one about Red Tornado, they had one about Guy Gardner, they had one about Booster Gold, some of my favorite characters, and this was just really fun. I really enjoyed this. So this was a really good read. Didn't take too long. It's just like a slightly thicker single issue. So that is the first on my read list. Next up here, these are the single issues I read, and really, I just read all of Fire and Ice, Welcome to Smallville. This was a fun little series from last year. There are 6 issues. I technically have 2 for number 2, but it was a fun little series. It was about Fire and Ice being sent to Smallville by Superman for Fire lashing out. I didn't particularly care for the actual, like, overarching story. I did like the references to the Justice League International throughout, but the way that they kind of characterized and just had Fire almost be like this negative bad character, I didn't particularly enjoy, especially for who she is. But it was a fun little series. A lot of Justice League International references. They mentioned the island of Kui Kui Kui, which is ironic because, which is in this book, Justice League International Volume 5. I absolutely adored the first 4 volumes of this. However, this more is about the, not necessarily Justice League International, but more of the Justice League Europe. It has Justice League International 2 of the annuals in here. So I didn't particularly care for this one as much. It's more Justice League Europe. Wasn't terrible, but just what it took, I was expecting better. And I read this over the course of like May and June, so this was just like a every once in a while pick it up and read it kind of thing. Like I said, it wasn't terrible. It just was not what I was expecting for my beloved Justice League International. While we're on the topic of Justice Leagues, let's talk about Justice League of America Volume 1 from the New 52. I read all of the New 52 Justice League. It wasn't my favorite, but it wasn't terrible. I've sounded really negative. There are some in here that I like, I promise. So this one was just I like the idea of the Justice League America being created to destroy the Justice League. This volume specifically just kind of wasn't necessarily the best to read because it takes a lot of stuff from Trinity War, and also if you're not coinciding reading the rest of the New 52, it doesn't entirely all add up. But it's got Green Arrow, it's got Simon Baz, it has Vibe, it has Stargirl, just a really fun cast if nothing else, and it was a good read. I liked seeing this different take on the Justice League, but it only takes up like 6 issues, I think, and 2 of those 6 issues are Trinity War, so I need to get volume 2 and maybe even 3 of this and just read this a little bit better. So that is Justice League of America. Going on a positive note, one that I was really looking forward to reading, and I was not disappointed by, was the One Star Squadron. Red Tornado, my favorite DC character, one of my favorite superheroes of all time. No, my favorite superhero of all time, the Red Tornado, is in charge of this team of superheroes for hire, and they're nicknamed the One Star Squadron because it's a bunch of like Z tiers. You got people like Minuteman, who only has powers for a minute, as opposed to Hourman, who has powers for an hour. Just like some C tier, D tier, F tier characters that you wouldn't necessarily expect, but Red Tornado is in charge of them, and he's leading. It's more of a business. It really humanizes him and makes him kind of realize, like, what I'm doing, that kind of thing. So really good read. One of my favorites. I think I read the whole month. Keeping it up with the modern. This is Blue Beetle Graduation Day. This is right before Dawn of DC. It talks about Blue Beetle basically graduating high school and then being sent to this new place. There's a lot of stuff with the Reach. You get some stuff with Starfire and the Titans. Not a whole lot, but more Starfire. You get a little bit of Ted and some Victoria Court. So this also came out right around the same time as the Blue Beetle movie, and that's why a lot of that stuff is in there. I really like the aspect of Ted Kord, the way that Ted is like the only one who's on Jaime's side. But overall, as for I didn't necessarily, and I like the story. I think it's very convoluted if you don't necessarily entirely understand Blue Beetle lore. But the artwork was a little bit more anime than I would prefer. It's very just not quite the artwork I would love. But it was a fun read, and specifically I like some of like the guests, like Black Condor was in this, which is a really cool thing. So good story. I sound so negative right now. I don't dislike all of these. I'm just like I obviously this is throughout the month of June, so some of these I haven't looked back through in a while, and I'm like only remembering certain aspects. So I'll get on to the last two. Okay, this was a hefty read here. This is Infinite Crisis. Now I'm gonna try and be positive because I know I've been very negative. I loved the story. It all made sense after a while, but I'm not gonna lie, it was really confusing. And the main reason for that is you had Superman, Superman of Earth 2, Superboy, Alexander Luthor, Power Girl, all of these characters together, and Superboy and Superman, all the Supermen and Superboys and all of them, they kind of look the same. They wear a bright blue suit with the same stuff. Only difference is slight drawings in the face and the hair. So it's a little bit hard for me sometimes to be able to differentiate them. But I like the idea of it all. I like the idea of them trying to recreate Earth 2. And this leads into 52, which is where it's 52 issues of the main Trinity being gone. And that's something that I really wanted to read. So I picked up, I've had this for a while and I just haven't read it. I have the companion too, which I'm going to probably read this month. But it is very interesting, and I really like the idea of the way that they did the secret society and how overpowered the villains really can be when they work together, and also how the Joker just absolutely demolishes Alexander Luthor at the very end, because the real Luthor is like, well, you should have you made the one mistake, you didn't let the Joker play, and then that's how the series ends. So one of the more, and all these crises are confusing. Anything with the crisis in the name. You know, you got 0 Hour, you got Infinite Crisis, Crisis on Infinite Earths. They're all very confusing. This one for me was just a little bit more confusing. But I still liked it nonetheless. I thought it was a fun read. And now for the last read of June. What better last read to do than the death of Superman? This is just, it's an iconic story. You know, Superman fighting Doomsday for like legitimately several issues. It has the Justice League at the time, which is borderline Justice League International. You got Fire, Ice, Booster Gold, Ted Kord, Guy Gardner. So it was really interesting to read. I'd never actually read The Death of Superman, and it was just the classic artwork, the classic fight, the wording, the lettering. It was a really powerful story once you think about it. This is one of the most powerful comic books of all time. You know, this killed off Superman, the golden boy of DC, and he remained dead for actually a decent while for comic books. And it was really good. It obviously just a bunch of fighting more than anything, but it was a fun read. It was nice to be able to say that, and I'd really like to read The Reign of the Supermen, because I really find that to be the more interesting aspect of after Superman dies, what happens. So I can now do that. But that has been my June reading. It's not a whole lot, but I'd like to read a lot more in July, and I hope I will. So stay tuned for that, and thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.